Today we delve into the world of crime, and today we are counting down the top 10 criminals in history. These individuals have made their mark in the world for their notorious crimes and their impact on society. From notorious serial killers to infamous gangsters, we have them all covered. So sit back, relax, and let's take a trip down memory lane to explore the dark side of history. Let's dive into the list, starting at number 10.
And where there's despair, may we bring hope.
Bringing drugs, they're bringing crime.
Dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe.
Do you have a bodyguard? No. You don't?
I have one bodyguard.
But I must confess it feels good to be thought of as a person, not as a personality.
We are concerned here with an act of humanity.
At number 10, we have Al Capone, 1899 to 1947, was an American gangster and businessman who attained notoriety during the Prohibition era. He was born in Brooklyn, New York to immigrant parents and dropped out of school after the 6th grade. He became a member of the James Street Boys gang, which was run by his mentor Johnny Torrio, and associated with the 5 Points gang. Capone was involved in several violent incidents before he turned 21. In 1929, he was arrested by FBI agents as he left a Chicago courtroom after testifying to a grand jury that was investigating violations of federal prohibition laws.
On June 5, 1931, he was indicted for 22 counts of federal income tax evasion for the years 1925 through 1929. On October 18, 1931, Capone was convicted after trial, and on November 24, he was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison.
Capone served his time in the Cook County Jail and the Atlanta and Alcatraz federal prisons. While in Alcatraz prison, he played banjo in the Alcatraz prison band called the Rock Islanders. He had contracted syphilis prior to his imprisonment, which had profoundly affected his mental health by the time he left Alcatraz in 1939. At number 9, we have Charles Sobhraj, also known as the Serpent, is a French serial killer who targeted Western backpackers on the hippie trail in the 1970s and 1980s. He was born in Saigon to an Indian father and Vietnamese mother. Sobhraj was arrested in 2003 in Nepal on charges of murdering American backpacker Connie Jo Bronzik. He was later found guilty of killing 2 tourists in 1975 and sentenced to life imprisonment. In December 2020, he was released from prison after serving 17 years. Since his release, Sobhraj has returned to France, where he was met by his lawyer inside a terminal building. He has been the subject of 3 non-fiction books, and the rights to a film based on his life were sold for over $15 million. At number 8, we have Bonnie and Clyde, were an American criminal couple who traveled the central United States during the Great Depression. They met in Texas in January 1930, when Bonnie was 19 and married to an imprisoned murderer, and Clyde was 21 and unmarried. Together, they committed numerous robberies and murders across the country.
On May 23, 1934, Bonnie and Clyde were shot to death by officers in an ambush near Sales, Bienville Parish, Louisiana.
The 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde, directed by Arthur Penn, revived interest in the criminals and glamorized them with a romantic aura. Bonnie and Clyde are famous for their crime spree during the Great Depression. They are also remembered for their influence on popular culture, particularly through films such as Bonnie and Clyde, 1967.
At number 7, we have Ted Bundy, born November 24, 1946, was an American serial killer who kidnapped, raped and murdered numerous young women and girls during the 1970s and possibly earlier.
He was often described as charismatic and handsome, traits he exploited to win the trust of both his victims and society as a whole. He typically approached women in public places, either asking for assistance or offering help. Bundy was born in Burlington, Vermont, on November 24, 1946. His mother's illegitimate birth humiliated her deeply religious parents. He graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in psychology in 1972. By the mid-1970s, Bundy had transformed himself into an outwardly confident and active person in social and political matters. Bundy is considered one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. It is estimated that he raped and/or murdered scores of women throughout his lifetime, strangling and mutilating his victims. He was executed in Florida's electric chair in 1989. His case has since inspired many novels and films about serial killers. At number 6, we have James Whitey Bulger Jr., 1929 to 2018, was an American organized crime boss who led the Winter Hill Gang in the Winter Hill neighborhood of Somerville, Massachusetts. He was born in Boston to Irish parents and earned his nickname Whitey due to his blonde hair. Bulger developed a reputation as a thief and street fighter, which led him to meeting more experienced criminals and finding more lucrative opportunities. In 1965, he was released from prison and went to work for a local Irish-American gang at a time when rival factions were at war. In the early 1980s, Bulger continued to operate the Boston rackets with impunity while he accumulated more experience with murder. He also worked closely with another FBI informer named Stephen Flemmi. In 2011, Bulger was apprehended after decades of eluding law enforcement and convicted in 2013 of 11 murders and other felonies that sent him to prison. 3.
On October 30th, 2018, Bulger died in prison less than 12 hours after arriving at a West Virginia prison due to inadequate medical care and multiple factors. 3 men were later indicted in connection with his death for beating him on October 30th, 2018.
At number 5, we have Joaquim Archibaldo Guzman Lora, commonly known as El Chapo, pronounced El Topo, is a Mexican former drug lord and a former leader within the Sinaloa Cartel, an international criminal organization. He was first captured in 1993 in Guatemala and was extradited and sentenced to 20 years in prison in Mexico for murder and drug trafficking. However, he escaped from prison nearly a decade after his initial arrest. In February 2019, Guzman was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 30 years by U.S. District Judge Brian M. Cogan for 10 counts of the superseding indictment, including narcotics trafficking, using a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking crimes, and engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise. The long road that brought El Chapo Guzman Lora to a United States courtroom is lined with drugs, death, and destruction. In January 2023, El Chapo's wife Emma Coronel Iceburo pleaded guilty to helping run the Mexican drug cartel while her husband was in prison. She admitted to acting as a courier between Joaquim Guzman and other members of the Sinaloa cartel while he was in prison. At number 4, we have a Catholic child murderer who spent time in mental hospitals and was ultimately killed in prison. At the age of 15, she dropped out of school to have her grandfather's friend's baby at a home for unwed mothers. In 1989 to 1990, Wuornos engaged in street prostitution along highways in Florida and shot dead and robbed 7 men. She initially claimed that all 7 men had raped her while she was working as a prostitute, but later recanted the claim.
On October 9th, 2002, Wuornos was executed by lethal injection.
Her reported last words were, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus." At number 3, we have Vlad the Impaler, also known as Vlad III, Vlad Dracula, son of the dragon, and Vlad Tepes in Romanian, was a 15th century warlord who ruled over Wallachia in what is now Romania. He was the second son of Vlad Dracula, who became the ruler of Wallachia in 1436. Vlad's father was arrested by Ottoman Sultan Murad II in 1442 and his sons were taken hostage. After his father's death, Vlad became a potential claimant to Wallachia. He embarked on campaigns to regain his father's seat and fought against boyars and his younger brother, who was supported by the Ottoman Empire. Vlad is most famously known for impaling dozens of Saxon merchants in Kronstadt, present-day Brasov, Romania, in 1456. His victories over the invading Ottomans were celebrated throughout Wallachia, Transylvania, and Europe. However, he was eventually forced into exile in Hungary after being unable to defeat Mehmet II. The exact date and cause of his death remain unknown. At number 2, we have Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer active in and around the impoverished Whitechapel district of London, England, in the autumn of 1888. The name Jack the Ripper originated in a Dear Boss letter written by an individual claiming to be the murderer, which was disseminated in the press. Some dozen murders between 1888 and 1892 have been speculatively attributed to Jack the Ripper, but only 5 of those, all committed in 1888, were linked by police to a single murderer. The victims were typically female prostitutes who lived and worked in the slums of the East End of London. Their throats were cut prior to abdominal mutilations. The case has retained its hold on the popular imagination due to its unsolved nature and widespread media coverage at the time. Forensic scientists have attempted to identify Jack the Ripper through genetic testing, but no conclusive evidence has been found yet. There have been more than 100 named suspects who may or may not have been Jack the Ripper, but none have been conclusively identified as him. The case remains unsolved. And finally, at number 1, we have H. Holmes, born Herman Webster Mudgett, was an American con artist and serial killer who is believed to have killed between 20 and 200 people. He was born into an affluent family in Gilmanton, New Hampshire in 1861. Holmes moved to Chicago in 1886 and began using the name H. Holmes. He purchased a pharmacy at the northwest corner of South Wallace Avenue and 63rd Street and built a 3-story hotel across the street, which became known as the Castle. He committed insurance scams with his accomplice Benjamin Pitzel and traveled throughout the U.S. In November 1894, he was arrested for selling mortgaged goods in St. Louis, Missouri, and eventually confessed to killing 27 people. Holmes' life has been the subject of many books and documentaries, including Eric Larson's The Devil in the White City, 2003.
After his execution on May 7, 1896, the castle was remodeled as an attraction called Holmes Horror Castle, but it burned down shortly after.
Well, that wraps up our list of the top 10 criminals in history. These individuals left a lasting impact on the criminal underworld, earning their place in history as some of the most notorious and captivating figures of all time.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And in the description below, you will find the sources. And as everyone today is a journalist through his phone, we have put a crew of workers at your disposal so you can send us all you find important in terms of news, trends, incidents, and scandals as pictures, videos, and documents. If we publish your content, you will get paid according to the number of views. You will find also in the description below a WhatsApp number and an email address for the reason. See you next episode. Thank you.